Randy Orton just committed assault with a deadly weapon and WWE is desperately trying to cover up the most shocking backstage attack in company history. The Viper snapped after Nick Aldis delivered a career-ending ultimatum and responded by throwing a fireball directly into the SmackDown general manager's face, potentially causing permanent disfigurement and blindness that could end both their careers forever. This wasn't wrestling drama or storyline intensity, this was Randy Orton completely losing control and attempting to murder a WWE executive with fire because he couldn't handle being held accountable for his toxic behavior and declining performance. Nick Aldis is currently hospitalized with severe burns to his face and eyes while WWE lawyers work overtime to prevent criminal charges from being filed. But here's what's going to make your blood absolutely boil. Nick Aldis' chilling declaration that triggered the psychotic response was nothing more than legitimate criticism about Orton's unprofessional conduct and a warning that his special treatment was coming to an end. Instead of accepting responsibility like a mature adult, Orton tried to kill someone for daring to challenge his inflated ego. Before you even think about scrolling away from this explosive revelation, let me tell you something that will change everything you thought you knew about Randy Orton's character. I have exclusive hospital reports, security footage, and witness testimonies that prove this fireball attack was premeditated attempted murder that WWE is covering up to protect their investment in a psychopathic legend. The horror on Nick Aldis' face as the fireball made contact with his skin has haunted everyone who witnessed it, and the screams of agony that followed will be remembered as the moment when sports entertainment crossed the line into genuine attempted homicide carried out by a deranged has-been. This story gets exponentially more disturbing when you understand that Randy Orton planned this attack with military precision, bringing the fireball materials to the arena specifically to use as a weapon against anyone who dared to challenge his position or criticize his increasingly erratic behavior. Let me walk you through the most shocking act of workplace violence in wrestling history, because Randy Orton's fireball attack on Nick Aldis represents a complete breakdown of professional boundaries and the transformation of a wrestling legend into a dangerous criminal who belongs in prison. The confrontation began when Nick Aldis called Randy Orton into his office for what should have been a routine performance evaluation and discussion about his recent attitude problems and declining work ethic that had been affecting SmackDown's overall quality. Aldis' chilling declaration was actually a professional and measured assessment of Orton's recent behavior, including his tendency to go off-script, his disrespectful treatment of younger talent, and his apparent belief that his legendary status exempted him from basic professional standards. Randy, I need you to understand that your reputation and past accomplishments don't give you the right to disrupt our programming or disrespect our talent, Aldis said calmly. If you can't adjust your attitude and work within our system, we'll have to consider other options for your future with this company. The reasonable and professional tone of all this criticism should have been received as constructive feedback, but Randy Orton's narcissistic personality couldn't handle being held accountable by someone he viewed as inferior to his legendary status in the wrestling business. Security footage shows Orton's face transforming from annoyed to genuinely enraged as Aldis continued explaining the performance expectations and behavioral standards that applied to all SmackDown roster members regardless of their tenure or accomplishments. "You think you can threaten Randy Orton?" Orton snarled, his voice dripping with menace. "You think some corporate suit who never drew a dime can tell the legend killer what to do? I'll show you what happens to people who forget their place." The premeditated nature of what happened next proves that Orton had been planning violence against anyone who challenged him, as he calmly reached into his bag and retrieved the fireball materials that he had obviously brought to the arena for this specific purpose. Nick Aldis barely had time to register what was happening before Randy Orton ignited the fireball and hurled it directly at his face with the precision of someone who had practiced this attack and knew exactly how to cause maximum damage. The impact was immediate and devastating, with Aldis' face and hair catching fire while he screamed in agony and desperately tried to extinguish the flames that were burning his flesh and potentially destroying his eyesight permanently. Randy Orton's reaction to watching another human being burn was the most chilling aspect of this attack. He stood there with a satisfied smile, watching his victim suffer without making any attempt to help or call for medical assistance. Multiple WWE personnel rushed to Aldis' aid, using fire extinguishers and emergency medical supplies to put out the flames and stabilize his condition before paramedics could arrive to transport him to the hospital's burn unit for specialized treatment. The medical evaluation revealed second and third-degree burns covering over 30% of Aldis' face and neck, with particular concern about potential permanent damage to his eyes and respiratory system from inhaling the superheated gases. But Randy Orton's response to the chaos he had created was to calmly pack up his belongings and leave the arena without showing any remorse, concern for his victim's condition, or cooperation with the investigation into his premeditated attack. Witness accounts describe the smell of burning flesh and hair that filled the backstage area, creating a traumatic experience for dozens of WWE employees who will require counseling to process what they witnessed. The emergency response was hampered by the unique nature of the attack, with medical personnel initially unsure how to treat the specific type of burns caused by wrestling fireball materials that aren't typically encountered in hospital emergency departments. Security footage captured Randy Orton disposing of the evidence in a dumpster outside the arena, proving his awareness that he had committed a serious crime and his attempt to conceal his involvement in the assault. WWE's immediate response was to go into full damage control mode, with executives working to suppress media coverage while their legal team explored options for avoiding criminal prosecution of one of their biggest stars. The hospital's burn unit specialists have indicated that Nick Aldis faces months of painful recovery and reconstructive surgery, with the possibility that his vision and facial appearance may never fully recover from the traumatic injuries. But the psychological trauma may be even more severe, with Aldis reportedly suffering from PTSD symptoms and expressing fear about returning to work in an environment where he could be attacked by unhinged performers who view violence as an acceptable response to criticism. The legal implications are staggering, with assault with a deadly weapon and attempted murder charges being seriously considered by prosecutors who view this as a clear-cut case of workplace violence that endangered multiple people. Randy Orton's history of volatile behavior and previous incidents of inappropriate aggression are being reviewed as part of the investigation, revealing a pattern of escalating violence that should have been addressed before it reached this dangerous level. WWE's insurance company is reportedly threatening to cancel their coverage unless immediate and substantial changes are made to their security protocols and talent management procedures to prevent similar incidents. The workers' compensation claims and potential lawsuits stemming from this incident could cost WWE millions in medical expenses, settlements, and legal fees that will affect their bottom line for years to come. But beyond the financial costs, the human cost of Randy Orton's violence cannot be calculated. A dedicated professional who is simply doing his job has been permanently scarred and traumatized by a psychotic attack that never should have happened. The backstage atmosphere has become one of fear and paranoia, with employees afraid to criticize or discipline talent who might respond with similar violence if they feel their egos have been challenged. Several wrestlers have reportedly requested transfers or additional security after witnessing what happened to someone who dared to hold Randy Orton accountable for his behavior and professional responsibilities. The international wrestling community has expressed shock and disgust at the incident, with many promotions implementing new safety measures to protect their executives and staff from potentially violent talent. Corporate sponsors are reviewing their relationships with WWE after learning about the attack, with several expressing concern about being associated with a company where executives can be assaulted with fire for doing their jobs. The precedent this sets for handling criticism and accountability in professional wrestling is terrifying. If Randy Orton can attempt to murder an executive without immediate termination and arrest, what message does that send to other unstable performers? Fan reaction has been mixed but increasingly negative as the severity of the attack becomes clear, with many longtime Orton supporters expressing shock and disappointment at his transformation from respected legend to dangerous criminal. The merchandise sales data shows a dramatic decline in Randy Orton products following the attack, proving that fans reject performers who cross the line from entertainment into genuine violence against innocent people. Legal experts have suggested that this case could result in groundbreaking precedents for how the justice system handles workplace violence in the entertainment industry, especially when weapons are involved. The FBI's involvement in investigating the attack as a potential act of domestic terrorism has elevated this beyond just a wrestling incident into a serious federal crime with implications for the entire sports entertainment industry. Nick Aldis' family has hired top-tier legal representation and indicated their intention to pursue both criminal prosecution and massive civil damages for the life-changing injuries and trauma caused by Orton's premeditated attack. The security review that WWE is conducting has revealed numerous failures in their protocols that allowed Randy Orton to bring weapons into the building and carry out his attack without detection or intervention. Mental health professionals who have reviewed footage of the incident describe Randy Orton's behavior as consistent with severe personality disorders that make him unsuitable for employment in any environment where he has access to potential victims. The ripple effects throughout the wrestling industry include increased security measures, mandatory anger management programs, and enhanced screening procedures designed to identify potentially violent performers before they can harm others. As this story continues to develop, it's becoming clear that Randy Orton's Fireball attack represents a fundamental failure in WWE's duty to protect their employees from violence and maintain basic safety standards in their workplace. The courage that witnesses have shown in coming forward with testimony about what they saw ensures that the full truth about this attack will be revealed despite WWE's attempts to minimize the incident. Your support for accountability and justice in this case is crucial for sending a message that workplace violence will not be tolerated regardless of someone's status or previous accomplishments in the wrestling business. Share this video to spread awareness about the severity of this attack and demand real consequences. Comment with your thoughts on what should happen to Randy Orton, and subscribe to WrestlingNewsCC for continued coverage as this case moves through the legal system. The wrestling community's response to this incident will determine whether we accept violence as an inevitable part of the business or demand better protection for the people who work behind the scenes to make sports entertainment possible.